now you have your volunteers. What do you do with them? Well, as much as you wouldn't send a staff member into the field without training, you must also properly train and prepare your volunteers. Before doing anything else, provide orientation for your new volunteers. Providing orientation training is essential in preparing a volunteer to acquaint themselves with the library and their new role. In addition, it helps the volunteer to become part of the team rather than an outsider. Volunteers should be given an orientation packet with essential information including the library history and missions, confidentiality policies, key contacts and telephone numbers, emergency procedures, the volunteer schedule and assignments, time forms, absence and late notification procedures, storage of personal items and parking, breaks, performance appraisal, and volunteer benefits and awards. Orientation should also include a thorough tour of the library and introduction to staff members. Having all of this information provided at the beginning of your volunteer service is crucial in opening the lines of communication, detailing what exactly is expected of the volunteer, and giving the volunteer a sense of belonging with the library, and specifically within your children's department. Once the volunteer has gone through orientation, skill training for your new volunteer can begin. You, as a volunteer supervisor, should train the new employee or appoint another capable staff member to do so. Different jobs will, of course, require different types and amounts of training. Those younger volunteers, or those that have simpler jobs like shelving, greeting parents and children at programs, or keeping the children's department clean, safe, and appealing, will probably mostly undergo on-the-job training. They should be shown the appropriate procedures and workspace and will learn through experience. Others, such as those recruited to give story times or plan and hold various programs, require much more specialized programs. Volunteers doing difficult and specific work should already have experience in their area, but in addition to previous experience, the volunteer should be allowed to observe others performing their tasks, be given written guidelines and idea scripts, videotape training, and extensive tutorials from the most experienced staff members. In addition, the volunteer should be closely supervised in the beginning, especially if you have entrusted the volunteer to work directly with children in story times and other types of programs. While it is absolutely crucial to make sure volunteers are thoroughly trained in their jobs, it is also important not to overlook safety training. Make sure volunteers are given access to safety manuals and given handouts of basic safety and accident policies. In addition, since these volunteers may be working with children, it is helpful, but not absolutely necessary, to offer training in CPR and easy accident care in case of an emergency. Hopefully, you will only work with the most diligent, enthusiastic, and skilled volunteers. However, we are all aware that from time to time, problems may arise with the challenging volunteer. As a volunteer supervisor, you cannot use the same corrective measures that would use on your staff, since the volunteer is not working towards a paycheck, but is sacrificing their own time and talents to help you and the children of the library. Volunteers must be dealt with tactfully and with sensitivity. Start with gently reminding the volunteer of how to properly perform their role after making sure the volunteer is enjoying and actually capable of this role. And closely supervise the employee afterwards until you are certain that he has become competent. Be absolutely certain that the volunteer knows that you appreciate his service, no matter what. If the volunteer seems to be incapable or unwilling to change, you may have no choice than to reassign him. Revisit the volunteer's original application and discuss with him where he would feel the most confident and comfortable. By assigning the volunteer a new role that he can perform with success, you have averted a crisis and retained a valuable volunteer within your department. But what if your volunteer is simply irresponsible? Sometimes volunteers are consistently late if they even show up at all. As a supervisor, you must understand that for many volunteers, serving the library is simply a small part of their busy lives and not necessarily a priority. However, it is unreasonable to tolerate a volunteer that frequently cancels at the last minute or doesn't contact you at all if he is unable to come in. Let the volunteer know that he is a valuable volunteer, but that you cannot assign him more important or enjoyable tasks if he is unwilling to stick to a set schedule. Once an employee realizes that he will be severely limited in his roles if he doesn't become more responsible, he is likely to either step up to the plate and take his role more seriously or step further back down from the job. Hopefully, he will take the former path and become a devoted volunteer, but if not, sometimes the loss must simply be accepted. To help alleviate this potential problem on a day-to-day basis, have a few volunteers that are willing to be on call and step in as a substitute if they are needed. The best way to alleviate the problem volunteer is to make sure that your volunteers are properly oriented and trained from the start. The more training and supervision that volunteers have in the beginning, the less likely they are to become a problem in the future. A little extra effort on your part can ensure that the volunteer is fully prepared to carry out their role, can save you countless time and aggravation in the future. As evaluations are important in any job, evaluations are also important for the Children's Department volunteers. These volunteers are genuinely interested in the library and the children that they serve, and they truly want to do the best that they can. It is your job to provide them with the feedback necessary to do so. Learn about their personal experiences and feelings about the program. Provide multitudes of praise and compliments to their service, and work with your volunteer to make sure they are comfortable with what they are doing and what else they would like to do to make their experience more fulfilling. For example, would a volunteer who helps out with craft time like to help develop and implement a program on their own? Would they be interested in doing a story hour or helping out after school with homework? Would young adult volunteers like to help children learn to read or practice English with young students for whom English is a second language? How about promoting a loyal, enthusiastic teenage shelver to a member of your teen advisory board, an essential group in finding out what teens really want in your library, made up the top tier of young adult volunteers? Finding out what the volunteer would like to learn is a good way to keep your volunteers involved and interested, and striving to improve his service to your department. Be careful not to overly criticize your volunteers as you might an employee. After all, you must constantly remember that he is doing you and the library a favor by volunteering. Be as positive as possible. Part of evaluation is rewarding a volunteer for his good work and service to the children of the library. It is absolutely essential to recognize a volunteer for his work in the Children's Department because it helps reinforce the volunteer's support for the library and remain loyal, as well as to spread the message to his friends and family. A great way to reward a volunteer is to provide them with expanded and more difficult roles. These promotions tell the volunteer that their work is appreciated and that their skills and experience within the children's section are extremely valued. Think how great a volunteer would feel if they were entrusted with their own story hour. Beyond these emotional and practical rewards, it is important to additionally acknowledge the volunteer with public praise, rewards, and recognition. Consider featuring extraordinary volunteers with a photo on a special volunteer board, and give out special certificates and a ceremony to those volunteers that truly go the extra mile or have volunteered for a long period of time. Be sure to give volunteers a birthday card or celebration, or better yet, have the kids they work with regularly do it. Celebrate Annual Volunteer Week in style. Have a reception recognizing your volunteers and present formal recognition of services. If possible, set out posters acknowledging the volunteers and present them with flowers, balloons, cards, or a certificate of recognition and years of service during the reception. Don't forget to stress to your volunteers that you are willing to help them with references in the future. A little bit of recognition goes a long way in boosting morale and maintaining volunteer support. Hopefully, in the short time that we have discussed using volunteers in your children's department at the library, we have convinced you that volunteers truly are worth the extra time and effort. By recruiting, training, and maintaining great volunteers, you can enhance your services to children many times over. We believe that volunteers really are an essential and valuable addition to any team of children's librarians.